make sure that we never, we're good? Okay. Okay. Okay, we are good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this beautiful spring day in Northern Nevada. Like I always said when my kids play baseball, it was like springtime schizophrenic with the weather, you know. It's 50 this afternoon, snow this morning. So thank you all for being here. Before we move right into public comment, couple comments that I wanted to make just to open the meeting. I wanted to look at as we're moving forward through this year, things that are important to us are the strategic plan that we worked on and set up a 3-year strategic plan a year ago. We're in year 1 of that. And sometimes it helps, you know, you do a strategic plan, you just put it up on a shelf and you forget about it. And really so that it's current and we're really guided by it. I've asked and we've had our team in each department come and tell us, and Ben McDonald's going to do that today, about where we are in the strategic plan for each department, because that is our roadmap, and that's how we get where we hope to go and adjust along the way. Kind of a reminder as I looked through this again last night, you know, the mission, which is pretty basic for our organization, is to attract overnight visitors to Reno Tahoe while supporting sustainable growth of our communities. Pretty basic. But the thing that really reminded me, and I think sometimes we need to come back to, are really the values that we set up in that strategic plan. Values of collaboration, you know, seeking internal and external perspectives, emphasizing an inclusive approach, you know, something that guides us. Integrity, you know, integrity today is a commodity that you don't always find, unfortunately. And I think integrity, especially important to me, and I think important to this organization, you know, keeping our word and doing the right thing. I can't help it, it's how I was raised. So I kind of had that, you know, that how I was raised, how I raised my kids, how I work on this board and in the city. But I think for all of us, integrity, really helping guide us, is a really important thing that sometimes could separate us from other organizations or any in the decisions that we make. Transparency, sharing information to create open and honest communication, and transparency today across the board, especially a quasi-governmental agency like this. Transparency is extremely important because people are looking for us to be open, to be honest, and to be transparent. Which I think we absolutely are, but just a reminder that is a focus. Ambition. We put in the hard work to enhance the quality of life for visitors and all Northern Nevada residents. So the hard work that this team puts in, that every employee puts in, that we as a board put in, is a work ethic that I think this organization has and will continue to focus on as we move forward. And then people, you know, we invest in the diverse experience and expertise of individuals who positively impact the communities we serve. So diverse experience from our senior management to our employees to our board that bring different things to the table, and the people are the most important at the end of the day. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on those because I thought they were important and sometimes an important reminder of where we're going and why we're going there. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item B, comments by the public.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 in-person public comment requests and 1 written. So first is Ms. Jessica Schneider.
Hello, my name is Jessica Schneider and I own Junkie Clothing Exchange. Don't mind the overalls. I'm literally going to be in a storage unit for the rest of the day. I just want to talk about the haunted house that we put on last year at the bowling stadium. Super successful. People from all over. I did videos during the line, about like 40 videos, but I know we only had 3 minutes. So Holly edited to only like 1 minute, but here's just an example of the people that we brought to the city in October.
I'm working on getting it on the screen here, if anyone knows how to do that easily. That would be helpful.
not on the screen.
Huh? It needs to project up there, but this is what I remember from last year. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you know what? You just have to get out of the room. All right, awesome. Here we go. Ready?
Mhm.
Where are you from? I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. Why are you here? I came to Reno just for this haunted house, and let me tell you, it was the bomb. Where are you from?
I'm from Oregon, Planet Falls, Oregon.
Where are you guys from? Where are you guys from? Why are you guys here?
To get scared.
Where are you guys from?
Yes, sir.
I'm
San Francisco.
Carson City.
Scotland, San Francisco.
Where are you guys from?
Oh, Finland, Czech Republic.
Are you guys from? Alter.
Sacramento.
And
Sacramento, California.
and where are you guys staying tonight? And how did you hear about Junkie Dark Work?
Just looking for haunted house for Reno.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming to Reno.
Thank you, it was really fun.
Yeah,
Good one.
you guys did a good job.
The best ones I've seen so far.
Yeah.
So I think really in a couple years, we could brand Reno as a place to come during October with Offbeat Festival, which Junkie hosts like 50 bands. We've always been the green room. Zombie Crawl. He is doing an amazing job branding themselves as the spooky place. So really our goal is to get all of us booked out in the month of October. And so we want to do this again, better and bigger. And the bowling stadium was so accommodating. Love Steve. And really, I'm just here to really advocate for tourism. I believe in tourism. I'm in the airport. I'm trying to get in the convention center, but I don't know who I talked to. I'm trying to put an ad in the convention center. I've been asked a couple of people, but I really believe in tourism and I really believe in Holly. I'm going to be quite busy opening 2 stores, but I believe in Holly. She's such a going to talk next because I just got beat. But thank you for your time.
All right, I have the PowerPoint to continue as well. Will that go back up on the screen here if I hit it? Well, there we go. Perfect. So last time you guys saw me, I'm Holly Spar, still am, and I'm one of the owners of Dark Corner Haunted House. And you saw me here last year with Jessica Snyder. Thank you so much for supporting me and believing in me. You also saw me here with Ed Atkins from the Pub Crawl. So when you saw me last, my last slide was the dream, the vision of doing a marketing campaign for our last year was our first year of the haunted house. So I ended the slide with showing you guys the vision for the billboard, and last year on the right, you see it became a reality. So we had the digital billboard right by the GSR. So with your help, thank you so much. Really, this PowerPoint is a big thank you to you guys for believing in our event and giving us the funding to really push that marketing forward. So man, it was an exciting year and we got some really exciting numbers. And I'm here to share these spectacular stats with you now. We had over 10,000 people show up for the haunted house. So for a first year with, the contribution of everyone that was involved, the amount of people was overwhelming. People showed up in troves. I mean, people from Reno Shore, that you just heard the video, people from all over were in line that heard about us through the amazing marketing we were able to do with your guys' help. So we over 10,000 patrons, we created over 90 jobs, and we had 0 issues. You heard it from Jess. Working with Steve Markwell at the National Bowling Stadium was amazing. The crew he leads and the support they gave us in that building downtown, it was phenomenal. So just went really smooth. We operated with the bowling going at the same time. We supported the bowling by bringing families and kids in to use the Kingpin Bowling Alley. We have bowling for the kiddos as a family event. And last year you heard me say, I'm going to come here next year and tell you we had a line around a block. So check this out. We sure did. So this is outside the National Bowling Stadium, way down there by the neon. That's the entrance. So this is the whole front side of University. Kids frolicking downtown, families amazing. The whole front side there on University, and this is the line continuing most of the way down Plaza. So in just 13 operating nights, we had people show up from everywhere, bring their families, bring their kids, and have a great time downtown Reno. And I could spend forever talking about the successes, but I picked one in general. Last year, PBS found us and wanted to run a short show on the creation of the haunted house. And that was just in a regional area. And right after Halloween, when that ran around here in Northern California, it was chosen for a national campaign. So this October on PBS, you're gonna see about Reno's haunted house all over the US. And this is some of the marketing and the campaign we were able to create, showing the RSCVA logo. So thank you guys so much for being in a collaboration with us, having a relationship with us. We want to do so much more this year. We have ideas for marketing going more towards Northern California. We're going to do a guerrilla marketing campaign in Sacramento, or even talking with Ed from the pub crawls just next in the zombie crawl this season. So really, it was a huge success. This is my last slide to say thank you guys so much. We're going to do it bigger. We're going to do it better, and we're going to go farther. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Peter Manchetti.
Good morning, thank you. I didn't know that I could show slides and videos and such, so I didn't bring any. This is my first time visiting you here. I'm together with my girlfriend Eunice over here. We organized this event called the Debaucherino. I left a poster here as well. I just finished completing the application just the other night on your website. So the main thing that we are looking for is assistance in funding and lodging, because the last time we did the event in 2019, it's supposed to be an annual event, but COVID. But the last time, the hotel prices now are basically double what they were in 2019, just 4 years ago. And last time we were at the Sands, and now like double is the Ramada on 4th Street, and then it goes up from there. So we're a bit concerned about the out of town draw this time. For our event in 2018, we had over 250 rooms at the Sands, between the spectators and the artists, and obviously they're all from out of town. I provided that in the application, like a spreadsheet with all the phone. You can see the phone numbers. I cut off the end of the phone numbers for their privacy, but you can see the area codes, and none of them are from Reno, of course. So yeah, we're getting ready to put tickets on sale for the event. It's going to be at Whitfield Park. It's going to be a daytime event, you know, so it's going to be in all ages, of course. We're going to have live music. Our headliner for 2018 that drew the most people is the Mummies. The Mummies from San Francisco area, and they're coming again. So normally when we put tickets on sale, we also offer hotels, but we're not doing that this time because they're just so much more expensive, and we're just going to leave people to their own devices to find rooms. And we're just a little bit concerned that, you know, that it's going to be that Reno's kind of priced out for a lot of these people, or at least just not as attractive, you know. So yeah, if we can get any help with getting a block, and a couple, I know we got to work with 2 different hotels. We're fine with that. We would definitely be, I think, drawing more people from out of town like we did in 2018 and 19. That's about it. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. Okay, well, thank you very much for your
Thank you so much.
consideration. Sorry.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Madam Chair, there is one written comment from Mr. Mark Servins. He is the Senior Vice President and General Manager at the Nuggets Casino Resort.
Okay, and on that note, and all of the board can call your attention to, there's a letter in the beginning of, in your binder, from Mr. Servants, who was a member of this board. Basically, instead of reading it, his letters with regards to our last agenda item, and really his support for a national search as we decide today on an RFP for a new CEO supporting a national search to do so. And the letter to Mr. Servants is in your binders, so we will note that. Is that it, Madam Clerk?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have Mayor Stevie and Mr. Chapman have both joined us online. and Ms. Keel. Just acknowledge we've got all of them online. I'm gonna go on to item C1.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I do just want to recognize, I know Jessica's here, I look at what she has built with Junkie through the years, what she is going into, I don't know as much on the haunted house, but I gotta say, it's a great example though, of private business. It's not if you were to look at Junkie, would you consider it a tourism draw? At first, you look at it as a retail offering probably first, but it's a great example of these crossover. What they've done through Burning Man on their own, outside of Burning Man, people coming in. Seeing junkie bags around the country, really, I've been out, we're not in this area, but really, my hat's off to you on, and now your new announcement downtown. But I do think, there's a lot of private business operators that aren't necessarily a 1,600 room casino like ourselves. That you really, I see Ann with her thousands of chamber members, but you just really see the ripple effect, and it's just more making a comment than anything, but really, I think hats off to you on your effort with this, but look forward to seeing this investment downtown as well, so just want to call that out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slaughter. And I would like to comment, I think we all appreciate, thank you. I think all of us alike appreciate to be thanked, because a lot of times we're not, or we don't thank people for things. So thank you for coming to thank us. Much appreciated, much appreciated. Mr. Murdoch.
Most importantly is how can she advertise in the wrong stadium? That's number one question. Who does that for us?
Okay, and you know what, I will refer that to, because we can't really, we can't, on public comment, we can't have a conversation about it. That's just open meeting law. So what we're doing, but absolutely we can refer information through our CEO, and he can get some of the contact.
One of the other things that I think is important that Stephen hit it, you all hit it. What she does here in Burning Man, she's in every hotel book, if I'm not mistaken, you're in every hotel book in every room.
And the airport.
And you're you're part of the DNA of our, what I call tourism business here, heads and beds, butts and seats, bowlers, whatever it is. We're glad to have you. And I just want to tell you, thank you, and thank you. Because downtown was alive with that haunted house. Next year, you'll have maybe a bowling tournament and a haunted house and everything going all at once. Got some center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, item consent agenda. Item C, well, the whole consent agenda, looking for motion to approve.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we talking about minutes? Yes, I think that's, but I'd like to.
Oh, within the consent agenda, do you want to remove one of the items?
No, I'm sorry, I wanted to comment on it.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, we need one, we pull it out, approve everything else, so we can.
Comment. Okay, go ahead, and then
Sure.
if it's an amendment, then we'll get that into a motion for the consent agenda.
Okay, I just wanted to comment that on page 6 of the minutes of our prior meeting, the comment was made by board member Sraza, and with all due respect to her, and she's not here this morning. She made a statement that the contract for Mr. Harris was one of the highest paid in the state. And I just want to correct that by saying it was easy enough to go to transparent data and see that there's no way his salary was one of the highest in the state. So I think that was an unfortunate comment. I think that it shouldn't have been stated, especially when it was not based on fact. And I just wanted to correct the record or note that I am concerned about the error in that statement.
Mr. Kennedy?
So I think it's not a change to the minutes because what was said, so we'll reflect your comments and
That's
thoughts
fine.
for
That's
today's
fine.
meeting, so I think the motion would be to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so I'm looking for a motion to approve all 4 items on the consent agenda as a block item.
So moved.
I
Second.
have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Outstanding,
Mayor and
the mayor and his, were both, you approve the consent agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. Shannon?
I said aye.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, we're kind of cutting in and out. Okay. Any opposed? Standing none, motion occurs unanimously. Moving on to item D1, CEO update. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Not making a presentation this morning as the board does receive the CEO report monthly via email. I've included it here for the record. I'm just going to go through a couple items. It is a 22-page presentation, which I will spare the board and those in the room while going through each of those items. I do want to talk about a few of the things within the presentation. One, in relation to annual goals on the tourism side, we had a goal of 8 events that we needed to offer during a needs period and partner with our hotel partners. 5 of those have already been completed. 4 of the programs are also in progress right now, which gets us to that goal. 3 additional programs have been contracted and they will schedule to kick off next month. Speaking of yearly goals, additionally, the board has directed me and ultimately the team to help move forward with a destination master plan. That is absolutely in progress and we have closed the bidding on the RFP. As of now, we've got 3 organizations with experience in master planning background that have submitted proposals. We are going to go through those and then eventually bring it to the board for approval. So we are moving forward on that goal as well. Also want to call out the marketing team that secured 3 awards earlier this month at the American Advertising Awards. If you go to the second page of that, in the RFP, we had 12 companies submit bids for the SEO, which is now closed in 19 different organizations for web development. That is also closed in work, and we're going through those RFPs currently. When it comes to occupancy of the 4 facilities, we've been asked to take that over last year, as you all recall. I do want to talk about the convention center that has pushed its occupancy up to about 45%. So that is really great news, up nearly 8% year over year. And if you look at the total potential occupancy for any convention center across the country, you're going to max out about 65%. So we still have a ways to go, but certainly doing better. And then when you look at the revenue for the 4 buildings, the convention center on the revenue year to date is up over 230,000. REC up over 187,000, NDS and RSCVA also up as well. And with that, I'll conclude my report and open it up to questions from any of the board members.
Questions, comments?
I do think highlighting that on the facilities increase is outstanding to New Charlotte staff. Obviously, like anything, right, you get bill short term and then as time goes, you hopefully yield up to other people's business, but I think with the charges to stem the losses, I think that's going to be a positive. I know it's going to apply to our discussion on the augmentation of the budget. It's due to that impact, but fully compliment the staff on that.
And I would echo those 2. So we've looked at facilities really kind of being that anchor for years at not counting COVID, but really looking at kind of when I came on the board 2.5 years ago, it's like, how do we get, how do we cut the losses for the 4 facilities? Because it's a tough one. But really looking, and really the goal, I think, has been to try to get occupancy up, more events there. We had a great presentation about our building, National Building Stadium, a little bit later. And really the goal of, I think you said last meeting, 184% up on use of our facilities, which is incredible. It's where we need to be going. Mr. Levitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, for the record, I just want to echo Charlie's comments. Really extend recognition to Renee McGinnis and her team. When we went through the facility transition process, we came up with a model. Renee and I presented to Charles to build the sales and events facilities team. And their goal, to your point, Mr. Spotted, is to book everything within a year in. And then obviously the sales organization focusing on the facilities with programs that involve roommates. And the model has worked. And I just want to applaud that team and recognize that.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure. I just want to compliment Charles on the CEO report and she gave me that whole thing this week. It's very comprehensive and it leaves me with no questions. The fact that the work of the team is remarkable in terms of numbers, revenue, use of facilities, so.
And once again, it goes back to our transparency. This is like a prime example of the transparency that we show with your report every month. Really, like you said, answers every question we would have, let alone somebody else who's looking at that. Very important. Mr. Rubin.
Yeah, I think it's really great for the RSCVA to be involved because if you look at our winter, obviously, we're flooding on every sports field arena. And it's been nice that we are letting in the students. And I got a nice call from somebody the other week on they left the girls team again. That's the greatest team ever just defined. And besides pickleball and letting all these youthlings use our facilities when they're, not being the practice that would be possible. We've been under strain pressure from the winter. These teams moved out and start learning how to have some fun and play. So it's been nice to get besides.
Any comments?
I've been very pleased with what's going on. I mean, my students are stellar. We're catching up. What we've been doing with staffing levels, equipment levels, stuff like that, but that's coming along nicely. And with everybody working as a team, we're gonna make all of our properties successful. That's our goal.
That's kind of a team concept that I tried to find out all of you guys. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to E2, presentation rolling update. Mr. Brent Powers, Director of Sales, National Bowling Institute. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm starting, then you're next. I know, Brett, like probably panicked.
I'm doing that.
I crossed off one more than I should have. Annual update. RSCVA Communications, Ben McConnell. You're on, Brett, you're next.
Okay.
I think we're good. We need to share screens. Oh, okay, so. All right. Thanks, Mike. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Ben McDonald, Senior Director of Communications and Public Affairs. Appreciate your time this morning. And Mr. Chapman, Gesundheit. I don't think anybody heard you, but I saw you. So this morning we'll go over briefly the areas of the annual plan that fall into my areas of responsibility. Again, quick refresher on the three main pillars. We have sales and marketing, destination alignment, and destination management. And these were identified in the 3-year strategic plan that we prepared just a little over a year ago. Looking at community engagement initiatives this morning. These are some of the primary goals associated with that strategic pillar located in the 3-year plan. And this is all relevant to the 2022-2023 annual plan. Now, one of the things that we identified is that we need to be a little bit more engaged with our community. And we instituted a weekly newsletter. The goal for the end of this year is to be reaching out to 510 active emails. That includes board members, business leaders, people in the community who are getting things done, whether it's civic leaders or on the private professional side. There's 2 examples here. of the weekly. The board gets the dailies, so they're not as comprehensive. So these go out every Thursday, and we're looking at switching formats. So the example on the left might be a little bit more familiar to you, while the example on the right shows a little bit of a shift that we're making. Thankfully, we brought in a new graphic designer who's helping us out. So we keep looking at these things, even as simple as a weekly email, and say, how can we make this better? Is the content relevant? Is the format engaging? And, you know, we really want to make sure that we're working with our partners. That's another thing. Informing the community and then working with the community. One great example, we're worked with the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Ms. Silver. And Reno Tahoe International Airport on National Plan for Vacation Day, which is a U.S. travel initiative that we really put some weight behind this year. And we even reached out to Senator Jackie Rosen, who helped us out, provided a quote, gave us some added relevance, helped us get some additional pickup and attention for that contest that we ran. And also gave her an opportunity as well to promote her omnibus package, talk about the office she helped create at the federal level to help promote and sustain tourism on a national level. Locally, we are on a tour of sorts, trying to reach all of our civic leaders with the county, both of the cities. We also met recently with Naoma Jardin at Downtown Reno Partnership. Basically just making sure that the community leaders know what we're doing, know what our mission is, know what our values and our goals are, and to inquire how we can help them and how they can help us do our jobs better. One example, and this is crossover between client relations and community relations, USBC wanted to offer a bigger package for their attendees this year. So they engaged us, we engaged Downtown Reno Partnership, who went out, bless you, who went out and found downtown businesses associated with National Bowling Stadium and that downtown core that USBC is in for the next 100 days or so from now on, and offered discounts and put at their fingertips, at the bowlers' fingertips, more options, more things for them to do. Try to expand that region a little bit for them as opposed to just living in 2 blocks. Let's turn this into 6 blocks and add some value to their experience here in the downtown area. So the first print on those was about 10,000, and we'll print out more if we need to. Again, there's 50,000 bowlers coming over the next 3 months, so that may be a necessity. Again, another example of engaging in the leadership activities through the area. I am currently in the first reiteration of the Washoe County Leadership Program. That concludes next month. It's about a 9-month, 10-month program that the county puts on. I can't speak highly enough about the comms folks who are organizing this for Washoe County. I'd love to tell Mr. Hartung what a great job they were doing, but he is no longer here. And they're doing a really fantastic job bringing about 40 community leaders together to teach them about what the county is doing, but also build some community between leaders in our own community and across organizations. Something else that we are really focused on is video content and sharing. You guys have seen a lot of the mayor videos. We've also recently worked with other community leaders like Ms. Silver, again, thank you, on bid opportunities that involve video that we produce and share, and work with our hotel partners to try to either bring business here or support business. We've done a lot of work with Shriners recently, for example, on trying to build that attendance for when that group is back here in the next few years. Community engagement, again, you know, one of our other measurables and one of our other goals is engaging on planning and what the future looks like, sustainability. And right now we're part of the Lake Tahoe Destination Stewardship. One of the leading organizations is Travel North Tahoe, Nevada. Mr. Chapman is on. If you have more specific questions about that effort, but this is a months long, probably going to be over a year long planning process on how do we preserve tourism and the destination for local residents moving forward. How do we maximize the effects of tourism without having over tourism, without damaging the environment? Because that's one of the reasons that people come here. We know that. We learned that during the pandemic. People love the outdoors. It's a huge selling point for our entire destination. So how can we preserve what we're doing from a tourism standpoint, continue that growth, but manage it a little bit better so that we're not damaging the lake, not damaging our outdoor spaces around Reno and Sparks. And that's you see that's not even every single organization that's involved in this. This is a very interesting and very complicated and very necessary process that the RSCVA is involved with right now. We also work very closely with our partners at the Reno Tahoe Territory and Travel Nevada. A lot of that work is on the PR front. We've organized multiple media fans with these organizations, as we do each and every year. And sometimes the senator's office calls back. So this was actually before we reached out to her. When she was getting ready to introduce her package, she reached out to every tourism agency in the state and said, hey, I need your support. This is what we're doing. Can you get on board with this? And so we said, absolutely. She has a great representative, Molly Rose, who we work with regularly. And we were happy to provide a quote and our assistance and our backing on getting this legislation passed. And speaking of legislation, so I talked to Jesse Wadhams yesterday. The BDR deadline has been moved to Monday, so we're not out of the woods yet. However, it doesn't sound like there's any impactful legislation in the works that is going to have a major effect on RSCVA this year. So no news is good news as far as I'm concerned. And there's a picture of Charles and I there at Tourism Day back in February at the Nevada Legislature. We joined our Assemblywoman, Nat Anderson, who was just a delight. Really thankful for the opportunity to go sit with her for a few minutes and check out what's going on at the legislature. It's a pretty good time. And, you know, one of the most important things that we do obviously is PR on a national level, but we also do that on a local level. Some examples popping up there, you know, whether it's helping wild sheep grow their attendance through press conferences and getting them the attention they need, whether it's promoting bowling day and looking for successes there. We are actively throughout the year promoting Reno Tahoe, RSCVA on a regional level, on a local level, primarily on a national level, but it's also important to get our name out there in a positive way and show the local community that we are able and that we are doing good. You'll learn more about Bowling Day in the USA in a minute, but that's also another crossover of community engagement that we have benefiting Food Bank of Northern Nevada and Special Olympics of Nevada. That was a really great event. I can't wait to hear more about it. Sorry. So a couple other things not directly in line with the annual plan. We do have a goal for national earned media reach. We don't count any of the numbers locally for that earned reach of about 1.3 billion. We're over that. We are looking, and PR is weird from year to year. It's hard to forecast. You know, sometimes it's like the Northern Nevada weather. Sometimes you think you're going to get something and it never shows up, and sometimes you think it's going to be sunny and it snows up. So we are looking at bumping that goal up. We've surpassed that for the last 2 years, so that goal will be increased next year. A few examples of two of the media fans that we had. Typically, we do a summer and a winter. Summer's been so great the last couple of years that we did a fall and a winter. We try to do those around special events or ski season, and both if we're able. So we've had about 7 journalists come in just on those fans, and we've produced probably about 13 other visits from national media this year as well. Something else that we do is send out the industry emails. You see the numbers there, meeting the conventions we send out every other month. And then travel, trade, and sports emails we produce on a quarterly basis. Just don't need as many touch points there. And that's based on advice that we get from our meeting the conventions department, as well as art and travel trade, and then Shelley Fine. And we work closely with Nick Sacamano to produce the content for those sports emails. And relevant to this discussion right now, the annual plan. We are currently updating the annual plan for next year. It's all based on the 3-year strategic plan approved by the board last year. And we're hoping to bring that back to the board on May 25th for preliminary approval and adjustments, and for the final approval to come on June 22nd at the full meeting of the board of directors. This is me. I'm always available on my cell phone if anybody ever needs to get a hold of me, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question and then I'll go over. So on the Reno Discovery Guide for the bowlers,
Yes.
Where do they get this? Are they in their rooms? Is it at the bowling center?
That's a good question. I believe primarily it's going to be at the bowling stadium.
At registration.
Yeah.
Oh, when they register, yeah, okay, so it's part of their registration.
It is, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes, I mean, it's a great, I love that, and I love, you know, or the businesses downtown, such a great opportunity to keep the bowlers down there and find, discover things they might not have had before, and appreciate that. I just didn't know how they got this.
And we really, I want to say, we really appreciate the work of Downtown Reno Partnership because we don't have the staff to pull together that kind of an effort right now. I mean, it's substantial. And so to have an organization that has partners, and they can engage those partners and help our client, our biggest client, it goes a long way for the community. It goes a long way for us, and USBC is grateful. Downtown Reno Partnership adds value to their members as well. It's a win-win-win.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Silver.
Yeah, I just had a comment, in your, in the know, we publish that in our weekly briefing, which goes out to 6,200 guests. So I think it has major impact, and we wait for that and see it every day, but we always put it in these weekly briefings. So I think when you talk about the number of emails, you can add 6,200.
We get a boost, and I see that, and I very, very much appreciate that. Thank you. That's something we work on every day and take a lot of pride in what we send out on Thursdays, and we've heard nothing but positive feedback so far.
It is, I really find these great. One question I have on that is, so is it weekly out to the masses? But it's
Daily to staff and the board.
Yes.
Weekly to the rest of the community. And I will say, Ben, you've done a tremendous job when I introduced it and taking that, but also Celeste on your team does a lot of the heavy lifting, make sure that that goes, and we certainly appreciate that. And for the record, I'd like to make sure that anybody who watches this online or anybody that you folks talk to, people can sign up. We want to make sure that we're reaching as many people in this community as we can. So thank you, Ann and the Chamber, for your continued partnership to promote it. We want to make sure that we're living our values and that we're transparent, and that anybody in this community that wants to get information can certainly get it. So you can join in and receive weekly emails from our organization.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because Celeste Rodriguez is our digital media specialist, and we hired her. She came in as an intern, and she did such a great job. We kept her on, and she is doing a lot of the heavy lifting specifically for that newsletter, daily and weekly. She does a lot of our PR initiatives and is also working on social media. So she's been a great addition, and we're grateful she's been around for a while.
Then, one more comment I'd like to make is, really in the community engagement piece, gives us that connection to our locals, to our businesses and our residents, who, it's critically important for people to understand not only who is the RSCVA, most people don't know, but that connection to the community and why it matters to our residents and our businesses. And really the revenue that we bring in with room nights, but with the economic impact of every group that comes in here, is really so critical, because it affects the average for somebody resident living in this Truckee Meadows that, in the form of taxes. You know, there are a lot of things that are happening across all of our jurisdictions that if we didn't have the economic impact that comes in with every group we bring in, it does impact, you know, all of us here living here. So really that outreach to increase community engagement and awareness of what we do in partnership, I think is much appreciated and really important work that we're doing.
Thank you. And we're still trying to improve on those efforts as well. We have a lot of new research coming in, and we're challenging our research partners to come up with some more sophisticated data points that we can share with the community to say, hey, we're doing stuff for you. We're important, and we're working for the community.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to move on to, we are now on E2, presentation billing update. Mr. Brent Powers, Director of Sales, National Bonus. Brent, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk bowling.
Give me just a second.
Okay. How we doing? What's going on?
You need to share your screen so we get that.
Thank you again for letting me come and talk bowling, my favorite topic. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, my name is Brent Bowers. I was hired in late September by the RSCVA as the Director of Sales for the National Bowling Stadium. To give you a little bit about my background, I had a clicker, sorry. There it is. Hard to recognize those pictures. The long time I have in my life. I am a bowler at the simplest form. I'm a little bit unusual. I'm not your typical bowler. If you were at the opening ceremonies, I'm a competitive bowler, but I try to be anything and everything in bowling because I made a commitment in college, sitting next to a friend of mine, a fellow rookie, that I would spend the rest of my days in bowling, whether it was 20 grand a year, 200 grand a year. I wanted to be in bowling. So grew up in a small town in Kansas. My mom, as a second job, was the youth bowling director there, ran a really successful youth bowling program. My dad, as a second job, was the local USBC Bowling Association manager. My brother bowled competitively, so it was only natural that I also bowled. Spent probably more hours in the bowling centers than my own home through my teen years, and then was fortunate enough to go on to Wichita State for 4 years and win a couple of team national championships in a supportive role. I wasn't throwing a lot of bowling balls, a lot of good players with me. While in college, I was also fortunate enough to make the Junior United States team for 2 years, where some friends and I went to San Salvador, El Salvador, won some gold medals. And yeah, I'm a bowler. It was only after college and realizing that I wasn't as good as I'd hoped I was, that I knew I was going to have to go the route of the bowling industry rather than throwing bowling balls. I still throw them somewhat competitively today. I'll bowl the national tournament in July. But in 2012, when I came out of college, I actually went to work for the Kansas State Bowling Proprietors Association as their head teaching professional and director of youth development. I did that for 2 years, was on the road, traveling to all these small towns in Kansas. It was a lot of fun. It was really, really great experience. But my now wife was moving. She had just graduated college in Louisville and was moving to town and didn't like the idea of me being on the road so much. So I elected to go to work for my favorite bowling center, North Rock Lanes. In 2014, I was hired to work for Frank and Kathy DeSocio at North Rock, 48-lane facility, largest bowling center in the state of Kansas. In 2018, they named me their general manager, and that's when the real bowling education happened. We hosted the U.S. Open in 2018, the Women's National Tournament in 2019, along with the USBC Queens event. So there was a lot of opportunity there at North Rock. It's a historic facility. In June, North Rock was sold to the largest bowling operator in the country, Bolero Corp. And having ran that bowling center like I owned it, the way they wanted me to, I knew it wasn't going to be a great fit. So I got out of the way and went home and spent time with my daughter. 3 months, I call it a mini retirement. I really enjoyed my time, but then Mike called and initially hesitant, didn't really see the vision. And he is clearly a salesman. We spent a few phone calls and then some Zoom calls, which led to my wife and daughter and I coming out in August and experiencing all there is to see here in Reno Tahoe. And it's when you see it all, it's pretty easy to understand why so many people stay and why it's, I think, what they call the Goldilocks zone, why you've been so popular in growth these last few years. So yeah, that's how I got here. And I am so excited to have left the historic bowling center and found my place with another even more so storied historic bowling venue. To give you a little background about my connection with the United States Bowling Congress, as I said before, I'm a bowler, but I have this weird love for the sport of bowling, the industry of bowling, the governance of bowling. So for half my life now, I've served on our local Wichita USBC Board of Directors, 8 years at the state level, 6 years at the national level in the USBC Youth Committee. And I've attended nearly every USBC national convention since they began when the organizations merged in 2005. On top of all that, college bowling is ran by the USBC. Junior Team USA is funded and ran by the USBC. And in bowling, what we call the Heisman of bowling, I was fortunate enough in 2011 to win the Chuck All-Star of Tomorrow, which is also an award provided and offered by USBC. So my ties run pretty deep, and I'm a big fan of the organization. To discuss a little bit about why USBC matters here and why they are our #1 customer, I'm sure many of you are aware, over at the stadium right now, the largest participatory sporting event. I don't mean just bowling, folks. That's the largest sporting event on earth. No other sport has 50,000 people come together and try to compete in one venue. So yeah, we've got 50,000 people gonna come through between now and July 24th, with an additional 20 to 30,000 guests that will stay, eat, play, and have fun in the Reno Tahoe area. It's got a significant economic impact. $73 million is the estimate. Since the stadium was built in 95, I'm confident this tournament alone has brought over 1 million bowlers to the community and over $1 billion of economic impact. That's not counting the women's championships and all the other stuff that bowling provides. To talk about the future, and many of you are already aware of this, 7 out of the next 10 years we'll be hosting USBC events, large events with real economic impact, which my job, I was brought on to fill in the gaps and try to fill those lanes when they're not in use for USBC. So to talk a little bit about what I've been doing over the last 5 months, obviously getting acclimated, coming from the bowling world, this is different significantly. And so I've spent a lot of time on the phone with industry contacts and people that I know, people that I've met, in pursuit of understanding the National Bowling Stadium better, understanding Reno better, and the surrounding area. And so many phone calls, number of meetings conducted in person and via Zoom. And then this trip here marks my 5th trip to Reno in my 5 months. And every time I'm in town, I do my best to try to understand the NBS operation better, spend as much time on the ground there as I can, as well as meet with hotel operators and understand the properties around and the surrounding area around NBS. Back in October, on my first month, I actually traveled down to Dallas to meet with Chad Murphy and his team at the United States Bowling Congress, again, to better understand our relationship and find opportunity. And so that's a great relationship, and I look forward to partnering with USBC on a number of things in the future. In January, I went to Savannah, Georgia, the Bowling Proprietors Association of America Midwinter Summit. Why does that matter for what we do? Essentially, that's a gathering of anybody and everybody in bowling. Whether you're Brunswick or Kegel or a manufacturer, whether you own and operate a bowling center, as well as USBC and a number of other delegates from USBC are there. So I was there in January, and it was a great trip. Met with a lot of folks, even as far back to Roger Dolphin, who was the American Bowling Congress executive director when the NBS was built. So getting that face time with folks like that to understand NBS and understand this operation better, it was a great trip. Looking ahead, obviously occupancy is a big deal. That's without question my number one objective. We have lanes that aren't in use. Let's get them put to use. On top of that, with recruiting special events and tournaments in spaces where we're currently not operating, I also think it's crucial that we create events that live here in Reno, that are here annually. And there's a number of different styles. I know it's hard to believe, but there's a little over 1 million league bowlers nationwide, and they vary from 130 average to 230 average, from 6 years old to 60 years old. And so there's a bunch of niche options there, whether it's a bowling and golf tournament that they come out for a weekend, or whether it's a team event, whether it's a youth event. There is a lot of opportunity. We just have to find a way to sit down at the table and make those relationships work. Obviously, we'll eventually take a look at standard operating procedures at the National Bowling Stadium, work with Steve and his team to make sure that my background as an operator of a facility, just having my eyes go over whether it's the financials, the expenses, or just kind of what we do, how much oil we're using, where are we buying things from, things like that. I intend to help there if and where possible. And then obviously marketing and visibility of NBS. We can do better and we will do better. And I'm excited to let the bowling world know that we're approaching our 30th anniversary. And it's my primary objective to ensure there's a 40th anniversary and a 50th anniversary, and maybe even a 60th anniversary. It is, without question, one of the most unique bowling venues on earth. Upcoming travel for myself, with the Open going on and how important it is, I intend to make regular trips back to Reno to check in on the tournament, check in on special guests that may be coming into bowl, things like that, as well as attend the United States Bowling Congress convention in Vegas in April, and then in June I'll head down to Orlando for the BPAA International Bowl Expo. Again, just a meeting of the bowling minds. Anybody and everybody involved in bowling are at those events. To discuss marketing a little bit and our plans to make the NBS better seen. Some obvious ones here, like Bowler Journal Magazine, owned and operated by the United States Bowling Congress, bowling.com and other online bowling retailers, California Bowling News, as well as other bowling, hard to believe, bowling news. Yes, it exists. And bowling's big in California. Northern California obviously is a big feeder for us. So spending some time and focused on where we're going to advertise and how we're going to get the word out next year over this next year. Some of you may remember, you may have seen the videos and how silly they were. We did bring in a pro bowling influencer. That's right, even bowling has influencers. Patty Hammerhand, based in Wichita, surprise, bowled in Wichita State, as many great bowlers do. Probably the second or third most popular bowling influencer online. Just about everything he touches turns into 30,000 plus views. So he was in town for a couple of days with myself, Courtney Mann, actually, and marketing really spearheaded this, and I appreciate their efforts in bringing Packy out. But we filmed a lot of content over the course of 48 hours, and that turned into a number of TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube videos, things that will live out online in the space, showcasing Reno and NDS forever. Bowling Day in the USA had mentioned, was a very successful event back on February 11th. We opened up the National Bowling Stadium to our community. 368 bowlers attended. It was a single squad, about 2 to 3 hour segment. A number of UNR students took advantage of Kingpin. We raised money for Special Olympics in Northern Nevada, and as well as gathered non-perishable goods for the food bank. So it was a great event, and we're looking forward to another one. Here we've got a beautiful slide of all the fun that took place at National Bowling Day. Just kidding, that's for marketing. But it does showcase, the reason it's there, it does showcase bowling is for everybody. Again, 660, it's one of the few sporting events, sporting games, whatever you want to call it, where the whole family can participate and have a great time. And so it is a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to August 20th, where we celebrate National Bowling Day. It's a similar event with some minor modifications from what we did back in February. Instead of one session, we're going to run 2 sessions. Instead of just giving them two games of bowling, we're going to give them 3 hours to accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. That should allow them time to get food and beverage. They won't feel rushed. The best part, I think, transitioning in August, we're going to do all the registration online. There will be no on-site payments. You will book a lane, not an individual person. So it should be very, very simple and streamlined, and ultimately a lot of fun for our community. So I encourage everybody to put that on the calendar and come out and take a look. Last but not least, this is a young bowling boy's dream come true, right? Jobs like this don't exist. The Taj Mahal of 10 pin, I first stepped foot in it when I was 13 years old. 2001, I was out here for the Junior Olympic Bowl Tournament. My mom and I stayed at Circus, and my coach at the time even asked me to watch Hoosiers before I came out, because if you're familiar at all with Gene Hackman and Hoosiers, when they get to the state finals, they put a tape measure to everything. And if you go in that venue as a bowler, it can be rather daunting. It's taken me a long time to bowl any good there. The first 5 or 6 tournaments I bowled there, it was terrible. But again, the feel of it all. So for me to be involved with the National Bowling Stadium and to do everything I can to try to help it grow and help it succeed, and in return also help this community succeed, I greatly appreciate the opportunity. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments?
I think this is a great presentation. I have admit as someone who stopped bowling because it had shoe size in the back. Much, but at a young age.
I'll tell you some that don't have the number.
The question was, I have a question, which is, yes, you don't always show the shoe size.
Sure, only the rental shoes, much like skates at a skating rink or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's just how the business model works, but they're affordable. We can get you a pair of shoes in a number of colors, very comfortable.
Nice. Well, I just want to make a comment that the Chamber of Commerce would love to get more involved with you, perhaps to have an event for our members. I mean, we have over 2,300 businesses and organizations as members that employ over 110,000 people in this community. We'd love to figure out a way that the Chamber Day would do something that brings our local businesses to the stadium. And we're happy, and those women promote all the events we have, but I think that the Chamber members can probably do it.
I absolutely agree. That's fantastic. And I'll absolutely follow up with you at a later date on that. I think, the vast majority of bowling tournaments, other than the Open Championships, take place on the weekends. These are typically Friday, Saturday, Sunday events. So filling that place up Monday through Thursday with events like that absolutely makes sense. Yep, bowling leagues for the RSCVA employees. You can do all kinds of neat things that help with the teamwork and the camaraderie and bringing people together.
Great. Thank you.
Things. Interesting that you you run around with GPA, they are kind of the GPAs of the retired in America. They're, what it is, a couple thousand, 3,000.
Yeah, about 3,000 bowling centers nationwide.
USA. They're kind of an impacted group. If we're side by side with USBC, it's kind of nice that you work for the president of BPA, which was Frank Socio. That's impressive. Good guy.
Just lucky to be where I was when I was.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that they call it Taj Mahal and it's so big, and you hit a chord with me as, and poor Christina hears from me every meeting. Where's my gaming influencers? I love the bowling influencers as well, to all over the USA to come to this Taj Mahal. And all we want is just to, all those to rise with the tide of occupancy in Nevada, in Reno, Nevada. So what you're doing and hopefully connecting with those spots. What you get some youth as you are, the young men in this industry, tied to a lot of the people that are important to us. Also, I look forward to you developing some tournaments, and you're on the right track there. That's big. Anything you can do to get a body in a car, get a body in an airplane, get a body in a casino floor, in a bed, in a hotel, or in a motel, we don't care. Love to get them here, and we appreciate it. Seems like bowling's on a good bit. That's good thing.
Well, it's interesting. I go back to 70 million plus people, more people than vote for the president every year, every 4 years, go bowling every year. And so it is something that everybody loves to do. And I do think that it's having a bit of a renaissance. We are not the cigarette smoke, beer on the floor. That's just not what we used to be is not who we are, not who we're becoming. And so bowling as a whole, league bowling is tricky because it requires commitment. And as a society, we're not good at that anymore. But the open play bowling, the people that are going on a 2, 3, 4 times a year, who openly admit that they love bowling and they think it's fantastic, that's all good for bowling, and that is happening. So, Bolero Corp, the organization that took over the facilities in Wichita, they have about 350 facilities, and their number one objective is to make bowling sexy and make it attractive. And as Starbucks helped the coffee industry, I believe that Bolero hopefully will help the bowling industry, because there's a lot of small mom and pop coffee shops that exist because of Starbucks, and because they can charge what they need to charge to stay in business now. And I'm hopeful that same resurgence will happen over the next 20 years in the bowling industry, and we'll see bowling bottom out and start heading in the right direction.
Mr. Spuckett, did you have any?
No, I think it's great presentation, Brent. I think I mentioned to Charles that our tree board, I'm one of those that bowls like once every 2 years. And for some reason, I bowled like 3 times in the last, not quit my day job. But I bowled Packy. Well, I saw that piece, same thing. I was like, that's a great piece. The one question I do have is, and I thought Rick was going here, is with the BPAA, is that a moving convention or?
The Bowl Expo has been hosted here in Reno.
Okay.
I believe it was downtown, when it was here 10, the same year that we did the bowling out on Virginia Street, which I was fortunate enough to be there. Frank and Kathy actually gave my wife and I their seats. So we got front row seats to a very extraordinary, unusual bowling event. And someone still has to win, and someone did. So that was the year I believe Bowl Expo also took place. So absolutely good fit.
Yes, we will pursue to get that back.
I was reading where you were. Seeing it to your point, it's under the arch.
Right.
And they were having a hell of a time with the oil on the lanes. Those pros were going at it pretty good.
But we should do it again. That was a
Wind
fluke.
was coming right down in downtown blowing dust.
But it was amazing. I mean, it really was. Had it not been, and they realized that they set the lane up in between a couple of buildings, and then the wind came in. So you could position it maybe a little bit different so the arch is still visible. And you could even set up walls and barriers if you needed to. Now that we know what we know, but that was a fantastic event. I think the marketing and promotion for Reno Tahoe and our community was great. That was a nationally televised event, and we'll have more like that.
You asked another
And
question.
Mayor Shippey,
Pros,
sorry.
bowlers. Pros coming.
Yeah, absolutely. In Savannah, I sat down with Tom Clark, who's the commissioner of the Professional Bowlers Association, and he loves Reno. He's made it very clear that this is a good venue, a good space. You know, the trick about the pros, when you have 3,000 bowling centers across the country who like the idea of bringing professionals to their communities so they can showcase what bowling looks like at the Pinnacle to their community, where we're a little bit different facility, right? We're not, those folks have to kick out business to bring them in, where we don't. So we're working on an agreement with the PBA to get them in here on a regular basis because they should be here, and NBS should be showcased on national TV on an annual basis.
Mayor Shibby, you have a question?
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if anyone else on Zoom is having a hard time hearing. Everything sounds very muffled. I don't know if that's just on my end. And then I know we got new microphones, so I kind of was hoping we would have a little bit more clarity. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to the chair and Charles for allowing Brent to come and present. I am so excited because this is something that we have tried to do for years and years, to really bring in someone that understood bowling, had the connections, to get, you know, the use of the facility in the capacity that we've always sort of envisioned it. So great job. And I have to say, I never had more people come up to me and say, I had no idea there was this awesome, like, world famous bowling center in Reno. And they're doing that now because you reached out to like at some influencer, and it's just interesting. Everywhere I go, you've already had this major reach and impact that I've never seen people even address the bowling stadium. So Brent, I want to say, I think you have all the right connections. You are incredibly likable. And that was another thing, is that people were reaching out to me and said, wow, what a great hire for you guys. So we're really excited to have you. One of the things I just wanted to ask you is, I know we've also wanted to see other events in there and sort of a multi-purpose type of environment. Have you had any conversations on that and what that might look like? Or, you know, do you have any sort of big ideas there?
I hear nothing but positive things about these formals, JA and different things that happen on the concourse, which all of that's possible due to the renovation, right? That square footage wasn't available. So no question. I think there's still more research to be done on what we can and can't do on the lanes and around the lanes. It's a lot of square footage right there. And that's one of bowling's problems nationwide, right? There's, at one point in time, there wasn't a single bowling lane bed in Miami-Dade County because the real estate is too valuable to take up that much space. So absolutely spending time, you know, my very first trip out here, we met with UNR, the athletic department, to see what the process would look like to get a bowling team on campus and to engage them and use the NBS as their practice facility. I think there's a lot of options. You know, I even think about our bowling day, you know, at my facility in Wichita before I left, we would bring out cornhole boards and different things. You've got a lot of opportunity on that to make it multi-purpose. And it doesn't have to just be bowling, although I would strongly encourage the bowling to always be part of whatever's going on in there. But absolutely, it's on the top of our mind, thinking about regularly.
And what's the possibility of getting a collegiate team? Do you think that we would be poised for something like that? Do you think it's possible? What's your thought there?
I think the western half of the United States is a little it's a little barren as far as bowling programs go. You know, Vegas UNLV's got one, San Jose State. Most of those though are club level men's programs. NCAA women's bowling, which is what UNR would be, is very popular in the Northeast and on the East Coast. So in order to do it, I think it's going to take a concerted effort, not just with UNR, but UNR connecting to their other colleges and creating our own conference so that we can eliminate some of the costs involved. You know, obviously the stadium would make a fantastic facility for college tournaments and practices, things like that. And so I definitely think it's worth sitting down and talking more with UNR about.
And you think it would be, I guess, large enough to pursue?
You know, with the amount of occupancy available at NBS, it certainly is not my number one bullet item, right? But it's on the list. I think I don't know enough about, you know, I bowled in college. Wichita State is club level. USBC runs our national championships. NCAA women's bowling became a thing in the early 2000s, and it's grown significantly. But we we need to bring in some help. And I've spent time with the two universities in Wichita that one of them operates under the NCAA structure and one does not, trying to understand what are the hurdles and what does it take. So it's an area that I'm still researching, and if I get a chance to meet with the athletic director again at UNR, I'd love to sit down and have a deeper conversation about it.
Yeah, Brent, just, I don't want to speak out of school. I had a discussion with Chad a while ago, and I want to say that he said there was about 63 teams in the country. So that gives you kind of scope in terms of size, whether there's an opportunity. I think the real challenge is proximity, be able to play other schools that are within a region. And I don't know enough about that, but there's about low 60s when you talk about NC2A sanctioned teams across the country today.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, 50 of them are east of the Mississippi.
Okay, great to know. Thank you so much and welcome to Reno.
Thank you.
So Brent, I love your background. I love your story. You're passionate about the sport. The knowledge you bring and the experience you bring is just the perfect fit for what we needed in the position that we put you in, which I think is just super impressive. As we look at uses of the facility and when we talked about the chamber, do we look at, obviously there should be potential for some of our groups that come in for conventions, and some of them, Emerald was here, they're looking for other activities to do maybe, and even if it's a smaller group, it's a great team building thing, whether it's a local company, all of our bigger, Panasonic, those kind of local companies, but groups coming in to have a night or afternoon bowling type.
Cocktail bowling party.
And maybe, I'm sure maybe I could answer that, and Brent obviously jump in too. So the entire team, whether it's the regional team or the sports team, we are always looking for opportunities to use other venues. Whether that's on their off night, whether it's a daytime activity, maybe if it's just even a smaller retreat within their core group. So the answer is yes, on the group side. On the local side, definitely, Brent and I, we have a standing meeting every week, Zoom, and then we probably talk 4 or 5 times about me on that. And, to some of the comments that the board has provided, Brent, he's a very creative guy, he's very passionate, and he is beyond hungry to get those creative juices flowing and ideas and concepts on how to maximize occupancy within that facility. I mean, to some of the comments that have come back is that, everybody I think can see his passion and see his love for the sport, and he just wants to go. I mean, I'm holding him back a little bit because we want, our core focus is room nights and to occupy that building, but he's got ideas that are covering the entire spectrum. So we definitely want to pursue local. We want to open that facility up as much as we possibly can. We want to get local groups involved, whether it's through the chamber, whether it's local corporations, whether it's working with EDON. I mean, the good news is that we now have moved into a position where everybody is rowing the same direction and wants that facility filled. Not only the groups that are generating room nights, that are producing room tax, but also local businesses. We need to get business in that building.
I appreciate that, and I think that all it makes sense, and it really, then you bring, there's local groups that do, they've got a board retreat or they've got team building they want to do. They also have connections to their associations that might be coming here, so they can still generate, outside sales as well. And if we ever did something, say for RSCVA, did a, board or employee, I would be in last place. I am the world's worst bowler. I don't even know what hand I'm in. I mean, sometimes it's left and sometimes it's right. Well, I try left and it's bad, and I try.
We'll reserve a couple lanes for anybody that wants a tip or
I need
two.
bumpers.
As long as you have a good time, that's all that matters. And again, like I said, nearly 80 million people every year do it because they enjoy it. So.
And it's a great family. We usually do it over Thanksgiving when there's family here.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, our family focus too for the community. You already mentioned that, and it really incorporates families as well, and just such a great fun thing to do as a family or as building a team. So thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. And when? I think. Public hearing regarding the approval of resolution 599. Adopting the budget augmentation for the Raymond Parks Commission. This is regarding fiscal year 2022-2023. I will turn it over to Ms. Stranger.
Okay. To do anything else? Let's share that on the screen. Maybe. All right, we're good to go now. Good morning, Courtney Jager, Vice President of Finance. The purpose of this agenda item is to review the details of a proposed budget augmentation for fiscal year 2023. We are required per Nevada revised statutes to submit a budget augmentation to the state of Nevada to spend in excess of our originally budgeted expenditures. And the Finance Committee approved this budget augmentation in an advisory capacity on March 6th, with the provision that the Board of Directors should discuss the Reno Event Center remodel project included in this budget augmentation before giving final approval. And I'll go over the details of that portion of the budget augmentation later in the presentation. And again, this budget augmentation will not be effective until approved by the Board of Directors today. So today's presentation will be structured as follows. First, we'll talk about the revenues that will fund this budget augmentation. We have over $4.6 million in available and estimated revenues to spend through the end of the fiscal year. Once we finalize department request lists and other considerations, we decided to only propose to spend $3.2 million and use those remaining funds towards the fiscal year 24 budget. So in this presentation, we'll talk about revenues, and after that, we'll review in detail the proposed expenses in the budget augmentation. And I'll move through this at a good pace, but feel free to stop me anytime for questions. Like I mentioned, our proposed budget augmentation today is slightly over $3.2 million. This augmentation is funded by revenues that exceeded budget during Q2 and our revised estimates for Q3 and Q4. Once finalized, these actual and estimated revenues totaled around $4.6 million. For Q2, revenues were $2.7 million in excess of budget, with room tax revenues and facilities making up the majority of those differences. Regarding room revenues, as you can see, the increases in total taxable room revenues are being driven by the average daily room rates. If we compare fiscal year 23 to the previous fiscal year, ADR is up 6.6%, and the number of cash occupied rooms is down 2%. So here we have the breakdown of total taxable room revenues by market segment. In terms of percentage growth, vacation rentals are still performing really well. They're up about 30% compared to prior year, and that increase is being driven actually by occupancy, which is up 35%, with ADR for vacation rentals being down slightly. The hotel segment is also up compared to last year, which is driven by an increase in ADR since cash occupied rooms for hotels are flat. So here we have the expense detail of our proposed budget augmentation. The majority of spending will occur in facilities, with capital being the second highest category, and we'll go into detail for each of these categories. So first, we're going to discuss capital, since the Finance Committee is encouraging board discussion around this item. So during our last budget augmentation, you'll recall that we added $100,000 to our budget to fund a refurbishment of the suites and the green room at the Reno Event Center. After further evaluation, we found that it would be beneficial to expand this project to the concourse and the dressing rooms, and that a more in-depth remodel would be warranted. So the total proposal we've received for this revised remodel is $512,000. That amount, less the $100,000 previously approved, leaves us with $412,000 to fund this project. And it's just a reminder, the RSCVA does not normally pay for capital improvements at the Reno Event Center. However, our CEO recommended that we evaluate this project given the current state of the suites and the related areas. So once we found that this project was a larger scope, we had a few options when we brought this to the committee. We could pay for the entire project, we could pay for a portion of the project based on priorities, or we could stick with our original plan and do a very minimal remodel. The committee did approve full payment of this project with the provision that the board discuss this item further before giving final approval. So our Vice President of Facilities, Trent, can go into more detail regarding the specifics of this project, or Stephen, if there's anything you'd like to add regarding the committee's stance on this project, feel free to jump in.
No, that just as chair of the finance facility committee, I wouldn't mind having Trent start just to kind of walk the framework of what's being proposed, and then we can, again, it was Chairwoman Bybee, Member Murdoch, I know Member Chapman was not able to have it. Then we can kind of add some color on what the thought process was, but if Trent, maybe we start with the suite discussion and then kind of roll out what the rest would be. Absolutely great, thank you.
So what we're looking at in the kind of the base form, Courtney was talking about different levels of financing on it. We'd like to start first and foremost with the carpeting, the furniture, the paint, that kind of a deal, because that's going to be the biggest impact. And we're going to be looking at around $160,000 to complete all of that. That figure can grow or shrink depending on the quality of the furniture, the type of fabrics that are used, that kind of thing. So that's a discussion once we get into the designers to fine tune that. The big portion of it is all of the electronics, so the large screen monitors that would go in the suites, that would be out in the concourse, that would be downstairs in the concourse, throughout the property, which should be about this size, and would give us good outreach for future stuff that's coming up, or current stuff that's going on in the building at the time, for directions. I mean, there's any number of things that you can use it for. So that's kind of an overview of it. If anybody has anything more specific that I can answer to, I'd be happy to.
Trent, what was the cost of the estimate for the electronics piece of that? I know that was the bigger piece.
Yeah, that was going to be 300,000 plus, depending on where we go with, how we do the hookups, how we do the servers, what type of monitors are used. So it will fluctuate in movements. That's a base number.
Just a bit of some perspective.
Yes.
So a couple things. The suites were built in 2005, okay? And since 2005, there's been no investment within those suites to upgrade and update those facilities. And today we have a couple of folks that have agreements to occupy that. We've got 10 suites, and the goal is to modernize and update those facilities, which should add some additional revenues. Now, in 18 years, because that hasn't been updated, I asked Trent to prioritize based upon not only 100,000, but in order of preference, what it would take. If you look at the concourse areas downstairs, you're talking about TVs that are either 27 or 30 inches that are just really dated, not updated, not really in use, and there's no TVs within the suites itself. So for argument's sake, you're in a suite, you want to go grab a drink on that concourse level, you don't see the stage, you don't see anything that is not the luxury or the premium experience you want someone to have when they come in there. So what we did is we divided the cost of the electronics, both the suites to downstairs, and that helps us get to where we're going to be in for the board to discuss. At the end of the day, the question is, does this board want to back improvements to the facility that is owned by the city? And what my personal view was, I think that we should offer up half. We could fund the whole thing, but we should offer up half and go back to the city and ask them to contribute to what's happening here. Additionally, what is not on this, and I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but you also have a video board outside of the facility that desperately needs to be updated. Now, I've asked Trent to cost that out to figure out what would that take, and I believe it's about $180,000 to $200,000 to repair that. And if you drive it down that area, it is not in 100% working functional condition today. So if we look to present the product, we're putting people in there, we've got sales, trying to sell the building, we have events that are in there. The question is, what does this board want to do in terms of funding, and how far do you want to go down that road to facilitate that?
And I think that's great context. That's exactly where I really want to frame for the rest of the board is, you've got a venue that has not been kept up. I think Charles brought up, you know, if we're to sell those suites, if we're to turn that into a revenue generator, it's got to be brought up to a standard. I think that 100,000 initially was a bit of a place marker, just to hold until we get some numbers. I think as we, like anything in our own properties, once you start preparing and improving something, it glaringly leaves the other areas that are left back. The one thing to point out is, you know, these improvements hopefully also generate more revenue, more sales, which comes back to the RSCVA. Ultimately, I mean, hopefully it's going to generate more room nights and more cash flow, so we can augment budgets again. I think the question of the city RSCVA partnership is a valid one. Like I said, we've approved it as the board to fund it fully, but I think it does tee up that discussion, including the sign out front, that we know ultimately is going to be next on the docket that we've got to look at. And you know, when I don't want to get far down the rabbit hole on that either. It's not part of this discussion, but when we say 180,000 for that repair, that's not a replacement of the sign. No,
It's a new front facing electronics that would update it. It's not taking the sign down and replacing it. My understanding from Trent is it's just the new electronics that would be able to present and promote everything like it should be presented.
a higher resolution screen.
Yeah, it's basically the footprint that sits there, okay? But the guts kind of facing, will all be in place.
Okay. Yeah, I'd open it up to the rest of the board if there's any comments or questions or what the feeling is on, can we take the full bite?
Oh, Roberta?
Yeah, I'd like to do exposure, then I've got a comment.
Okay, absolutely.
I'd like to make the exposure for the record of this agenda in the matter. Of course, affects my commitment in private capacity to my employer, the row. The row has been and expects to continue to utilize the Reno Event Center for events underwritten by the row. The agenda item provides a budget documentation to provide RSCVA resources for certain capital needs to the Reno Event Center. The Reno Event Center is home to many events not sponsored or underwritten by the row. Capital improvements being proposed in this agenda item will benefit all users of the Reno Event Center and will make the Event Center a marketable destination and allow it to continue to serve as a driver tourism in Washington County, which financially benefits many of the large restaurants and retail centers. For all these reasons, I believe that a reasonable person in my situation would not be materially affected by the road's use of the Reno Event Center. This is not a disqualifying conflict of interest.
You have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We have to remember too, just like the bowling stadium, when you got Reba McIntyre. We paid our CDA, the road has. Reba McIntyre costs $500,000. We guarantee whether she sells out or not. We're on one. We expect our CDA to get the room back to help us with these facilities because we are selling tourism. It's filling rooms, it's filling airplanes. So that's why I think this is very fair that we do fund some of the building things down there because we still have the $2 fund, which if we look at the history of it, it's been used, we got the bowling stadium with the contract to sign the bowl for 7 out of 10 years, which the RSCVA gets the room back. So I just, in fairness, I'm supporting the full augmentation. And I think we need to fix this line. It definitely shows downtown. We're getting busier downtown. We're getting newer things downtown. The facilities are being used, but nobody gets a free ride here. And we do also send $1 out here from the $3 surcharge downtown. So in all fairness, it seems like this isn't a big ask. The amount of money we've been taking in and the amount of money that's generated. Plus, we pay for the bowlers to be here. We pay $10 to our CVA for the room nights, Rhoda, and we pay another $10 to USDC to get them to sign the contract. So we're paying way more than our fair share to bring a convention group, the largest in the world, here to the RSCVA. That's why we think it's only fair that this is a drop in the bucket compared to the 73 million or the other things that Reba McIntyre is gonna, what she brings tonight, sold out.
Ms. Silver.
I'm sure I have a question, and perhaps it's best directed at Mr. Carter here. You made a comment about the city agreement, or perhaps Charles, who did, relative to its contribution to this. Have there been discussions with the city of Reno relative to their contribution to this upgrade and modernization? I certainly agree with it. It's much needed. I think the modernization of the signage, the rooms, decor is much needed, way overdue. I think that will help dramatically. I just want to know what the city's role in this is.
I don't believe all of it.
Yeah, it has not been presented to the $2 committee as yet. That is for discussion based upon what this board wants to do. We would then go to the city based upon whatever you choose to vote.
I do want to just add in really quick, I think part of this was timeliness in the sense that we want to get selling and want to get it upgraded. And that's why really the suite discussion came up first, because we could turn this pretty quick, start selling it differently. I do, and then that just kind of evolved into, look, we've got a bigger bite here. I think there's gonna be a time factor with this city. I'm not saying that shouldn't still be done, but I think it could hold it up more. You know, I think to Mr. Murdoch's point, I do worry that when you've got Reba McIntyre coming in, and I like this, we don't have the appropriate level green room of what these entertainers expect. And that's a reflection on our destination. And I think I would probably be in a different camp if we were not seeing an augmentation where we're seeing positive increase. I'm more inclined to say let's fund it, but for further discussion, we need to be sitting with the city on. I do think things like the sign exterior and that we should be, it's a partnership, right? But I would be in favor of this. I do think if we were concerned from a timing factor that we're gonna get held up if we're going back and forth on it.
Madam Chair, this just ask my question a different way. So in voting for this augmentation, is that predicated on men involving the city? In terms of potential funding from the city? That's after our vote, the fully funded?
Our vote would be to fully fund it.
Okay.
Fully fund the suites and the green, not the signage, not the outdoors.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand. Okay, thank you.
I think too, part of the discussion and as we look at this, it's kind of like the bowling stadium. The bowling stadium and the event center are owned by the city of Reno. So in our contract, so my lawyer can keep me on track here, we're responsible in Trentham for maintenance, basic operational costs and maintenance. CIP projects, improvements, any capital projects, because we don't own the buildings, are not our responsibility.
Anything over $10,000 is where the city.
Okay.
So that's historically what has happened.
Okay, so anything over 10,000. We already made a commitment with the bowling center because we knew that was important. And so the city took some, and we took some, and we did an investment over what we normally would because it's not our property. But I also look at like the fees of it, the streets. We're not obligated for sure, but I think that subcommittee, as we talked about it, they need to have those done right now. And the potential revenue that the RSCVA will generate, just like Trent explained to me, the lighting upgrades that we did over there, that we were not contractually obligated to make that big of a capital improvement, but we looked at the benefit on lighting from labor, from energy savings. So really, I think we have that flexibility, not an obligation, but we have the flexibility of funding it. The suites, I think, to Mr. Squagg's point, getting them done quickly, moving it along. In the subcommittee, we talked a lot about that. And it's something that since we have the augmentation right now, it needs to be done. And at the end of the day, if we get those suites occupied and paid for every event that comes in, There's a couple that are reserved, but you know, on an event by event, it's a better incentive for somebody to rent that for private party,
So,
you know.
so two things. If you haven't toured the back end, we'll get you there. That's why that 100,000 certainly didn't meet what we need. And Mr. Murdoch's point, when people come in, we've got to be able to showcase the right way. And what, Trent, I don't know if you want to say anything, but I would tell you, it's horrible and it needs to be fixed. And a priority for any guest that comes in, whether it's furniture, painting, just the presentation of the product, it reflects on the destination. That's part of what went into that dollar not going up. And also, I was just notified Mr. Chapman has his hand, can't see it, but his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chapman, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you. And at first I would like to reiterate Hillary or Mayor Sheevy's point. It is difficult to hear some of the conversation. And I have my audio up all the way. I don't know if Shannon's are hearing the same thing, but I think if for future meetings, it might be good to figure out that volume level because it is hard to hear some of the side conversations that are going on. But on this one particularly, you know, I'm certainly in support of funds to kind of increase the competitiveness of that center. I do believe we ought to reach out to the property owner in the city to see if there's an appetite to work together on this, because I do believe it could create a slippery slope. And Mr. Murdoch's point is well taken, but let's say as an example, you know, we have community fields up here in Incline. We do a sky show on July 4th that's driving visitation, of which the RSCVA receives benefit from those room tax collections. And if that field needs, maintenance or CIP work, am I able to come and have a conversation and ask for some funds? So it is a slippery slope because we don't own that property. Again, I understand the need for it and I support that. But I believe there would be an appropriate step to work with the city to find out, you know, how can we work together on something like that? Because again, I do believe it could open us other issues. The Grand Sierra does events outside, you know, big, large, concert events, and you know, do they have the ability to come and ask for some additional funding to help that outdoor arena and things like that? So I just think we need to be mindful about how this what's the long tail of these decisions. Again, I fully support the need there because I believe we do have to up the competitiveness of that location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Mr. Murdoch.
You look at the, to get in the 7 out of 10 year contract with the bowlers, we had to hit benchmarks for their contract for the facility. The city of Reno needs 4.5 million. If you look at the $2 fund, what it's for is for the facilities and a mile radius downtown. It can be used on parks, it can be used on the sign, it can be used on the river. So the point is, we exhausted a lot of that $2 fund because Harris has closed and Jacobs has been under construction. So it's not fair to the city either, especially when we are paying our taxes. The road sends out a lot of money out here. This is nothing compared to this USA. What did you spend on this USA that went directly to the GSR, which I was all for? This is nothing more than keeping the products fresh that the RSCVA is the biggest benefit from the room tax. And believe me, have you looked at our room rates lately? Try and book a room for Reba. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, this is just part of the augmentation, correct? Do we want to? I don't, unless we have other comments on this piece of it, do you want to go to the others and then just see it as the overall package?
Good idea, yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Because we are going to basically item by item.
No, this is the only thing, Courtney, we were
Encourage discussion.
we were looking from the subcommittee of discussion of this full amount or not. And I guess I look at it too, with the need and the benefit the RCVA will get from this, kind of like with the bowling, we put more money and more CIP than we were obligated to because we knew that we had to. So we worked that partnership with the city of Reno, who owns it, And we put in more than we originally anticipated because it was needed. And I think it was beneficial to all of us. Looking at this item for the suites, we will generate the income from that, not just room nights, but the actual revenue from renting each of those suites and having higher occupancy of those suites and being able to charge probably a little more because they actually are worth a group coming in. So I appreciate that. The $2 committee, I understand the challenges there, when Harris not here is separate. We mentioned the sign, which is not on this agenda item. And I guess in my mind, the city, looking at that, whether it's that fund or the city itself, looking at maybe an ask for me would be another very needed thing that if we're doing all of this, the sign needs to be done. And so maybe that's an opportunity that we go back to the city to do that part compared to if we split this, it would almost be about the same amount of money as what we're looking at. 250,000. So I kind of, for me, if we do it all compared to splitting it, and I would agree with Mr. Squaga, they need to get it done now. And to that point, we talked, Trent, you mentioned about installation of everything, especially the electronics, and the fact that our teams are tied up till the bowlers are gone. We could do it at a lower cost of installation if we're using our crews versus somebody else. Is that still the case? What would our timeline be? We get all the other work done and the electronics come last. Is it something that would be worth waiting for our crews to be available? And what would be the cost difference if we did that? I thought we started that conversation before.
Yeah, and that's something that we can discuss.
I mean, it's not a decision we're gonna make today or something, just a question that I had.
Essentially, if we were to do it in-house, or at least a good portion of it, because there's still gonna be items that we're gonna have to get a firm in there that they have that expertise to run the wiring and put the servers in and that kind of thing, but we can save some money by doing it in-house. I think the biggest problem we have right now is supply and demand. Even if we were to say, yes, we started today, it's still gonna be out there months because of just getting equipment. So the push to do it right now versus waiting until after the USBC tournament, I think is kind of a wash.
But the other work could start. If this is
The furnishings.
furnishing, the carpeting, paint, all of that work, the cosmetic can start, the electronics might be.
Yeah.
You see,
And realistically, the electronics.
it's just the installation.
After the fact, because you're gonna want everything else kind of in play. You don't wanna paint the walls and then you have all the drilling and everything else. You're gonna wanna be able to cover that up, so you just do a little touch up. I mean, there's a process to do it, and I don't think we would have an issue with it either way.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay.
Okay, we can move on to the next
Let's
portion.
continue moving on, and then we'll get to the end if we're looking at a motion that includes or does not. I'll consider that at that time.
Sounds good. All right, so next are marketing and sales. So we're proposing to add $120,000 to the marketing budget, primarily towards advertising production for leisure campaigns and meetings and convention campaigns, certain meeting expenses, and other expenses related to hospitality, travel, and promotion. We're proposing to add $161,000 to the sales budget. In convention sales, $50,000 of this will go towards the Biggest Little Sites program, which introduces clients to Reno Tahoe that have either never been to the destination before or haven't been in several years. And convention sales, the remainder of the augmentation will address inflation noted in hospitality, travel, and familiarization tours. And in tourism sales, we'll be adding 1 FTE. So next is the facilities department. As we discussed earlier, facilities revenues were higher than the original projections prepared by the sales department. This is driven by more events than anticipated, higher overall attendance than forecasted, and higher secondary revenues driven by the sales and events team. On average, these increased levels of business are costing approximately an additional $275,000 per month. And this augmentation replenishes funds spent in Q2 to support those higher levels of business and addresses our revised projections for Q3 and Q4. With this augmentation, we're still intending to maintain the loss figure previously approved by the board, since we're planning to fund this with facilities revenues and no room tax dollars. Regarding how we're going to spend these funds, Personnel is a large area. More events and higher attendance means that we need increased staffing, including full-time, part-time, and temporary labor. We also want to ensure that we have adequate resources allocated to labor for the USBC Open Championships, since that's one of our highest priority events this year. That event is heavily staffed with part-time and temporary labor, which is still a really competitive market right now, and we want to have the ability to attract top-tier talent there. Next are utilities costs. The buildings being more active and holding more events in the winter, and especially this winter, really drives up our costs. There's also been a large increase in energy costs overall due to inflation. Security services are another area that increases with increased activity at the venues, and safety and security is one of our top priorities. As we discussed during the original budget, we're still addressing deferred repairs and maintenance items that had been deferred during the previous operating contract. And again, repairs and maintenance aren't items that we capitalize. This is just what's required to keep existing infrastructure and equipment in operating condition. We knew going into this year that we'd run into a large backlog of deferred maintenance items that accumulated during the operation of the facilities when it was outsourced. So this really isn't a surprise to us. Services and supplies is another area that's impacted by increased activity and has also been heavily impacted by inflation. We're seeing costs for supplies increase over 10% compared to the prior fiscal year. And again, we intend for the facilities loss figure to stay the same. We need this additional funding really to support the increased levels of business. Last is the apportionment to Incline Village Crystal Bay, which is required for legislation. In Q2, the apportionment exceeded budget by $38,000. We're asking for $43,000 to include revised estimates through year end. With that, I can open it up for any discussion or questions.
Any other comments, Mr. Squaga, as finance subcommittee chair?
I mean, I think I don't know if you want to touch on any of the other items. I feel, you know, again, the committee spent time making the recommendation, but I should, you know, put it back to the group and see where we want to go from there.
Okay, other questions?
I think the augmentation is reflecting the increase in business and the numbers we're seeing. And while I guess the best way to say it, you have to spend money to make money. And I think this is all a reflection of the work done by the team at RSCVA, the enhancement of the event center is critical. I had the privilege of going backstage when Terry Seinfeld was there, and I never laughed so hard listening to him talk about the green room. He could do a whole shtick just on that. So I think this is worthy of our consideration, because to advance room nights, to advance tourism, to advance the city of Reno and city of Sparks' reputation in terms of tourism and hospitality, spending this money is an inevitable request as we modernize and create more effective ambiance and sophistication in our tourism and room night expectations.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah, Councilwoman, I don't know if you can see when we raise our hands.
I need the screen, if somebody put the screen back on. I could before, but now I've got the.
Yeah, let me take the
PowerPoint up.
presentation off.
Go ahead.
So I want to go back a little bit to the facilities, because I heard the city of Reno. It's very hard to hear. It really is. So I don't even know if I'm getting this correctly, but and do you understand how the $2 surcharge works? Because
Yes.
the fees are taken care of by that account as opposed to room tax, right?
Yes.
And so here's the thing, if we're not doing enough business or events, then there isn't enough revenue that comes in to pay for CapEx. And then it gets siphoned out for other facilities and other projects. So that's what's happening with the $2 surcharge. And so my question is, how long has the signage been down? Or I know it hasn't been working. And it concerns me from the mere fact that that is like your sort of calling card, your first impression. Those are really important aspects whenever we're talking about signage and what we're sort of presenting. I'm just curious, Charles, how long has that been down? And I think you've been advocating to fix it, correct?
Mayor, I'm gonna defer to Trent because he's, as a facilities guy, he's gonna know that better than I do.
Yeah, this sign has been degrading over the last couple of years, but we've really started to notice a huge lack of the ability to repair it in the last 6 months. And I'm a little fuzzy on that exact number, but that's a good guesstimate on it. The components are no longer available to repair that sign. So that's one of the reasons that it needs to be replaced. You can't just fix it. They don't exist. I mean, that sign's 18 years old. They usually don't last that long. We've had good maintenance on it to get it this far, but now that's out of the question. That answer it?
I'm so sorry. It's so hard to hear you, Trent. It sounds very muffled. It sounds like a while though. Couple years.
Well, starting a couple of years, but more recently within the last 6 months or so. Can you hear that?
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to know that, but I do want to clarify that revenue honestly is thrown off downtown because it's being siphoned to pay for other facilities instead of reinvested in downtown. So some of those comments, and I apologize, it's like I said, it's so hard to hear. So I just heard the city of Reno a few times. And so I wanted to clarify exactly how the $2 works and why that is. And it's because we don't bring in enough revenue to pay for all of that. That's why if we were doing more business, and I think part of the issue is convention, we focus on conventions sometimes, and really the business, is events and recreation. That's where, we can really make a difference when it comes to revenue. But again, I'm so sorry. I can't hear your comments. I just heard the city of Reno, and it didn't sound like people understand how the $2 downtown works.
Ms. Silver.
Madam Mayor, I hope you can hear me. This is Ann Silver. I completely understand CapEx, and Rick had me and my approval vote based on his comments. So my mention of City of Reno was relative to the sign. Considering how old it is, my hope is that that work gets done, but I'm totally in favor of getting the suites and all the cosmetic things done immediately so that, the city is able to benefit, every hotel room is able to benefit from type of attractions that are brought into the event center.
Okay, thank you. I just heard benefit. So thank you. I'm assuming that's positive.
And Mayor CV also, I had mentioned with our partnership with the city of Reno, what our obligation is contractually on those two facilities, on the event center and the bowling center, is very different from what we already have considered and did for the bowling. And we're operations and maintenance and the capital projects we have invested, and this is one more of looking at investing it in it. And partnering with the city like we did with the bowling stadium of what capital projects need to be done, understanding that the $2 surcharge and losing all those rooms at Harrah's, having the sands down for a while are huge, effect on that $2 and on the ability for the city to fund the things that maybe you would have, and it's used for other things, to your point. So really, this is a partnership I see that for me, the fact that the RSCVA will benefit because we upgrade those suites, we can generate more income. And that income does come to us. So it's like the lighting. Is it something that we can say, yes, we're not obligated? Is it a benefit to the community, to the performers? Is it a benefit in the end to make that investment that we're not obligated to? But is it a smart investment? Absolutely. Is it something we need to do? There's no question. We need to have it done. And so really, I support the work and our investment in that, and then our partnership with the city, since the city owns the property. I look at both properties, it's gotta be a partnership that we're working together. Mr. Squaga, did you have any more comments?
No, I think It's been discussed, well, partnership is the key word,
Okay.
but I think, I'll leave it to you to.
Well,
Ask if there's-
looking for a motion then.
I will move that, this board approved resolution number 599, adopting the budget augmentation and for the Reno Sparks Convention for fiscal year 2023.
Okay, looking for a second, and then my attorney's looking at me because it's a public hearing. So let me get a second before we vote or discuss. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Second from Mr. Chapman. This is a public hearing, so I will open it to any public comments on this before we take our vote. Seeing none. Madam Clerk, no public comments? Okay, seeing none. Close public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item F2. Procedure for hiring president and CEO. I'm gonna open with Mr. Kennedy.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll try to speak up for the folks on Zoom. So as everybody is aware, Mr. Harris's contract runs through the end of October, so it's time to start thinking about the process for finding that replacement. This agenda item, the idea is just to allow the board to discuss and to give direction to staff and legal for how you'd like to proceed. And maybe the best way to do it is maybe explain how we handled this search the last time, and then you can decide if you want to adopt that same mechanism or just have a discussion about changing it. The last time we went through this process, the board approved the issuance of an RFP for a search firm. We got those responses back. Those responses were reviewed by the entire board. Excuse me, the board made the selection for the search firm. Once the search firm was selected, then the board met with the search firm and outlined sort of the process for how applicants were going to be presented to the board, the different job qualifications, et cetera. So really, I think the first question to the board today is, do you want to use an outside search firm for the search? And if you do, are you authorizing staff to release the RFP? And so we're in March right now. If we authorized an RFP for a search firm, you're realistically, by the time the RFP is released and we give time for response, you're probably going to be reviewing those, I would say, at the May meeting, and hopefully making a selection for a search firm. And then we'd have at the June meeting, sort of a meeting to give that search firm direction, decide on the process. So they're really probably not starting work until June, July, which I think puts us on track to have a new candidate in place by the end of October. So with that, I don't know if there are questions or any further explanation on what that would do.
And I don't know if you or maybe Courtney can answer the question for an RFP. What is the traditional timeline that we would put that out for? Because May was later than I was anticipating, but I don't know what normal for other RFPs. Is it 30 days, 45 days, or what would we be looking at once we really, if we vote on this and we open it? What is the time frame before they close and what is selected?
So it would be on track with the timeline that Ben Kennedy described, because legally we do have to use certain timeframes for proposals to provide responses, to provide questions, for us to provide responses to questions. So it does lengthen the timeline a bit. So it would be pretty on track with what Ben said, and I know that that would be board meeting.
Okay, and it's actually open for what time frame?
We have some flexibility in the time frame that we could leave it open, like we did give responders 2 or 3 weeks to respond, leave a week for questions. There's not a set time, we have some flexibility with that, but it is lengthy given that we have to have certain set time periods between each phase.
Okay, and we set those timelines, like the RFPs you're doing right now, set when they close.
Yes.
And then what the timelines are during that before it actually closes.
Exactly.
And you make the decision, so that's all spelled out.
Yes.
When that's released, similar to your other RFP should just adjourn?
Absolutely, right front, you provide a schedule, and that way those who want to bid on it know exactly what our timeline looks like too.
Perfect.
And I just kind of a little bit, so if we authorize it today, you're probably next week before the RFP is published. And then we're gonna have, you've got a couple weeks to respond. There's some time for back and forth if there's any questions. And then we gotta make sure we get them to the board at least a week in advance of the meeting. So like if we were looking at a meeting 4 weeks away, the board's not gonna have responses back in time to be able to meaningfully review them and make an informed decision. I would think that if we authorized it today, the main meeting, a couple weeks in advance of that meeting, the board would have all the responses, you can review them, you come to that meeting ready to make a selection. I just don't think it's feasible to get everything done and materials back to the board in time for a decision that they won't get.
Okay. So I guess that's my second question. The board receives the information on the firms, and then it's a decision made, discussion and decision, because of open meeting law, we do that at a board meeting,
Correct. And
not through, not a subcommittee, as the executive subcommittee
And
involved at all.
so the last time we did this, it was at the board level.
Okay.
A lot of times the RFP staff will go through them, they'll narrow them down, and they'll make a recommendation of one to the board, but given sort of the nature of this RFP, in the past, the board is elected to sort of handle that as a whole.
Okay.
But you can certainly run that through a committee first, if you wanted to. That's totally in the board's discretion. Obviously, if it's all open meetings, so if you run it through a committee, it's gonna push that timeline out a little bit.
Questions?
Can you hear me?
Mayor Sheedy.
Yes. When do I think we have new board members coming off and coming on. When is that?
So that'll happen in July. So I think if you started the process now, you would have the existing board selecting the search firm, but I think you would have the new members in place before you selected the new CEO. If we waited until July to start the process, I don't know that we'd have somebody in place by October.
Okay. And that, quite honestly, I don't worry about that so much in the sense that we have a very, very talented team. And so everyone has proven they can, do their job. And so I'm not so worried about that. I do worry about having new board members coming on and being part of this process, I guess. I'm just a few comments. I'm probably the longest serving board member, and I've watched us do this sort of over and over and over again with search, with search agencies. They're expensive, but there's a reason, because they go out there and they, try to get the best of the best. But I really believe that we have not gone out there locally, and it should be something that we're looking more community oriented in the sense of making sure that it's someone that really wants to be in this community instead of waiving this massive compensation and carrot. We have always done that. And I think that has not served us well. It's like I said, I've watched it over and over and over again, and we're going to continue to do the same thing over by hiring very expensive search firms. And then there's all these other little bonuses that are attached to that. And I think it's problematic because they really push for someone nationally, and they really dismiss locally. And I've watched it over and over and over again. I know I'm probably on a losing battle on this one because I have been the entire time that I have served on this board. But that is honestly the one distinction that I've noticed over and over again when we do these search firms. And so if we decide to go with a search firm, I would say there should be absolute benchmarks in there. I know what to look for now because we've done, so many of them. I think your staff has to be a part of the process because they have to work with this person every single day. I think that matters. And then all the little caveats that go with each candidate of how they get compensation. There's like bonuses in there that people don't even know about. And so they can be very lucrative for the search agencies. Not that they're all bad, but I would just say it really should be focused so locally. I've had like 8 people reach out who are incredibly talented that are local and they live here and they're invested in what we do here. And I think that matters, because otherwise, if we're just saying, hey, come to Reno, we have this big compensation, then I just don't know if you get someone that understands, also board, there's also, you have to kind of know too about quasi-government. There's a factor in there too that can be a little challenging, like for open meeting law, but also understanding gaming and room nights and things like that. So I would just, caution as we move forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple comments.
I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. You sound just like jumbled. So I apologize if I can't respond.
Okay, can you hear me now? And am I clear?
No, and it's strange because I could hear Ben really clearly at points, but you are completely jumbled. Everything you're saying doesn't even, it sounds like we're in a Peanuts cartoon. So anyway, so I apologize. So I'm going to go on mute.
Okay, so tell me if you can hear me now. Is that clear?
It's a little better on my end, a little bit.
I'm on the actual handheld microphone. So couple of comments. And I've said this from the beginning on the going with a nationwide search firm does not preclude us from hiring somebody local. I mean, it doesn't. And I believe that Mr. DeLone was local and it was a national search firm. I know. Excuse me?
Mr. DeLone was not local at the time. No, he wasn't. And my point was just to, make sure they tend to push national. And the reason they do that is they can make more money whenever they have a candidate that is their own candidate. When you have someone that's not with that firm, then they don't get paid the same amount. That's my point. So all I'm just asking is the board to pay attention to that. So that's why they push, national. That's why it's always been pushed nationally, not locally.
Okay, and I understand that. However, I feel best practices is a national search firm, and it has never in my mind precluded us hiring somebody who is local. And obviously when we pick a search firm, those are questions that we can be asking on what is there a difference? What is their reach? A lot of determining factors on how we pick a search firm. But I think the nationwide search firm, and I have heard from many community members and leaders that that have been very emphatic, including the NRA, on the national search firm, and then see who we, getting the best candidate. And it could be someone local. I'm not opposed to that at all, but I think it has to be a national firm, and maybe it's not just DMOs. Maybe it's bigger than that. And I've talked to Courtney looking at HR, and as we look at putting out an RFP and looking at people that have been in tourism, having minimum standards so we don't lower our standards of what we're looking for, what the requirements will be. But we could find someone who maybe is in gaming, or maybe they're coming from Marriott or a hotel or an airline. Years of experience in tourism doesn't necessarily have to be someone who came from a DMO coming to our DMO, because this job, as well as the quasi-governmental side of it, is very different from a lot of other positions that a CEO would hold. But I think, I absolutely want to go with a national search firm and open it and see, what each firm that puts in, question them highly on how their process would work, what kinds of compensation, would it be different, depending on where their candidates come from. The process is important to me. There's things that Ms. Ferraza brought to my attention when they searched for Darren over at the airport, that I really liked some of the things she said that they did. So things that we're looking for that can help us, find the best new CEO, and also one that I agree, Mayor Shibby, the staff, senior staff is super important because they're working with the CEO every day and the board, so ability to work with the board, and that's the next step for the actual CEO. Right now, we're just talking about the actual process to issue an RFP for a nationwide search firm. So I will open it up to any other questions. I see Ms. Keel has her hand up. Shannon?
Hi there, thank you. I cannot remember the last time when we had the national search firm and we had a local candidate. And I know we discussed this, but I can't remember what the outcome was. Did the national search firm were they bonused or commissioned based on the local candidate that they obviously didn't find? That local candidate applied on their own, or was it separate?
It was separate. I was there, so just so you know, the local candidate was not, the national was.
Okay, and I'd like our attorney to comment on that. I won't because I wasn't here, but Mr. Kennedy.
Sure, so we had the discussion, it was with Searchwide, and the question was, if we bring a candidate to them, are they compensated the same? And their position was, even if you bring us the candidate, we still have to do all of the work that we would otherwise have to do. And they may have offered a slight discount for a candidate, for a local candidate that we bring to them. But it wasn't, in my recollection, I haven't looked at the contract, it's been a while. I don't think it was very significant. It was basically an acknowledgement that regardless of who finds the candidate, the search firm has to do the same amount of work.
Well, okay, so I did remember that I had an issue with this last time, but now that you're saying it, it's kind of coming back to me. I don't understand, what work does the firm have to do? What, like the local candidate, we find them, they apply, they interview, and whatever, they have to give a presentation and they have to, their resume and all that stuff. Why does the search firm have to even be involved, and the local candidate should have to do all the same things that the non-local candidate would? And I'm just going off of my own personal experience. I use recruiters all the time, but I also have people internally who submit that the recruiter didn't find, and I don't use the recruiter for that internal candidate, but they go through the same process that the other one would. So I guess I need clarification on that.
Sure, and this is definitely a discussion once we start discussing proposals, but we had this discussion with Searchwide, and their response, it's because we're sort of parallel tracks, right? So if we wanted to wait and see if we got local candidates and then go through the process and decide if we want to hire an internal candidate, we can do that. But once we hire the search firm, then they're in go mode and they're going to do everything that they're otherwise going to do. And so they're saying, if we can't come to them and say, we want you to start, but if we find a local candidate, then we're not going to pay you, because they've already started their process and they're out doing the work and want compensated. And then once even with the local candidate, they're still vetted by the national firm, right? So they're doing background checks, criminal backgrounds, they're doing sort of all the work they would do for their normal candidates, even if it's a local candidate. And so that's the discussion that we've had we had that with Searchwide, and we had that with we used a local firm, a small firm out of New York for the previous search. And it was the same discussion. Their positions are consistent on that.
Okay, I mean, it's totally different than any recruiter I've ever used. I don't know if DMOs or those companies are different, but I've never had a search firm do background checks for an internal candidate, and I've never had them to have to do any work. And I've also never had a recruiter ever get compensated for work performed. They only get compensated if they find somebody. That is my personal experience. But I agree with Mayor Shivy that well, I guess I'm agreeing with everybody. We need as many candidates as possible. We need the most fish with the widest pond to be able to really search to find the best possible person. And there is no reason why a local candidate should have any less of an advantage as a non-local candidate. Now, if we decide that the search firm is going to be bonused less and put the local candidate through the process, then they are going to be biased no matter what, which is why I feel like they shouldn't be involved with the local candidate part. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Shannon, this is Charles, and I'm far from weighing in on this, but I will help clarify something for you. There's two different types of search firms. There's retained search firms and there's contingency search firms. On a retained search firm, you pay that, and this is across, not just DMOs, this is across all business. On a retained search, you're gonna pay that percentage, no matter if it's local or national or whatever it is. It's an exclusive agreement with a search firm. On a contingency search firm, you're not giving that exclusivity. So you're not paying unless they deliver the right candidate for you that is then accepted. So there's a big difference for any business on how they conduct a search, what type of agreement it is, and if it's contingency versus retained.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I have done both. I've done exclusive as well. But I've also, when I've done exclusive search firms where they are the only company that you have hired to go out and find a candidate, they get that commission. But with the caveat though, that if somebody applies on their own and does not need the search, hasn't come through the search firm, then that search firm doesn't get commissioned. So I totally understand what you're saying as far as that distinction, but I will say that I've still done exclusive and had somebody come internally who never was found by that search firm.
I have a couple more board members that want to comment, and Shannon, real quick, having gone through some search firms for a position in my city, we really used a search firm, and it was critically important that they did the background checks, even for someone who had been employed in that job or that area, local or not, that they had, that the search firm vetted everything that Ben was talking about. So it's recommendations, referrals, obviously if they're internal, but it really is important for the vetting to occur. If it's a local candidate versus someone not local, the vetting still has to happen. And it's important because it protects them and it protects us of that work that they're doing, is what he's saying. Let me go to Anne because she does have an HR background.
I just want to say real quick, I 100% agree, but I don't think it's not rocket science to do the background checks and referrals. And I feel like any company could do that. But I 100% agree that it does have to happen.
Anne?
Sure, I just have a comment, which is, I'm sorry, I just have a comment, which is the semantics we're using of internal, local, nationwide, just as a member of this board, I think we want the best candidates to apply wherever they come from. The city of Reno just hired a police chief from outside the area. Darren Griffin came from outside the area. I did, Charles did, the new school superintendent. I don't think we should label people internal, external, local, non-local, born here, not born here. I think it's all about quality and a search firm, regardless of whom we select through an RFP process, is charged with being transparent and consistent. I was in the search business at one point, and it doesn't preclude or prevent, and in fact should encourage local candidates to apply. I just think we should stop confusing the terminology of internal versus local or using them to mean the same thing. We just want the best candidates to apply. Thank you.
Thank you. From the experience that I had in the airport, when we were looking for a new CEO, we actually had when the committee got down and the search was one internal and one external. So in all fairness, if you get the right search firm, you get that, you get an open, I'm open, but to the point of how much are we willing to pay, and because it's expensive, and they also, it's the gift that keeps giving when they ask for a percentage of salaries and things. I think it really needs to be looked at. The contract needs to be very strict, and what we pay for, because you get what you pay for.
Mr. Skloyak.
I'll be very brief, and I agree with, board member Silver's comments. I just feel it's our responsibility to the community and to our tourism partners in our industry that we get the best candidate. Oh, so I'll be brief with I'm in favor of doing the national search, and I'll leave my comments to that.
Any other comments on Zoom? There's no more here in the room. If not, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Can you give us the whole quote? This isn't. Okay. Hang on one second.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Swag is going to clarify his motion.
I'd like to make a motion for the board of directors to accept, moving forward to give staff direction to begin the search process for our president and CEO position, including but not limited to direction to issue a request for proposals for a national search firm.
And I heard a second was.
I'll second for
And I think, Shannon, were you second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
discussion.
I just called for discussion. I need the mic. Go ahead, Mayor Sheeby.
Thank you so much. Again, I apologize because it's so hard to hear. I think Anne makes great points in the sense, it doesn't matter. I think, I want to clarify, we want a great candidate. It doesn't matter from where. So I want to clarify that. I don't think that was part of the discussion where we were going. It was to be careful of the pitfalls that we have continued to do over and over and over again, and they become very, very expensive. I'm going to be voting no because I think we have to quit waving the carrot and we've got to start thinking about the community. I've done it over and over. I've seen it many, many times. This is always how this path sort of goes down a very dark road. And again, I just feel like it needs to be completely different focus than what we've done in the past. But I think to Anne and to Stephen's point, they're exactly right. It doesn't matter. And I never said you have to be born here. I want to clarify that for Ms. Silver, because I think she mentioned someone had to be born here. Again, it's very hard to hear, but I think we all agree we want a great candidate. I don't care where you're from, but I think we have to do something different. And this is what we've always been doing. So appreciate the time.
Murdoch.
Obviously, the board chair and the attorney, we're going to be negotiating with opportunity with a search firm. And Ann brought up a good point. We don't have to pay for somebody that we recommend locally or that, maybe just negotiate it in the contract. We have to be good negotiators. That's my point. Let's be good negotiators with the search firm, but come on, come all. I don't care where you're from, who you are. We want the best candidate.
Madam Mayor, and addressing Mayor Sheeby, this is Ann. I was not suggesting that you suggested someone be born here. I was saying it shouldn't matter where anybody's from, provided we get the best candidate. And also, as a negotiator by training, I think you negotiate with a search firm. We have every opportunity, perhaps to your comment that we've had kind of a dark chapter of maybe not asserting ourselves with a search firm. This is our opportunity to be more actively involved and engaged in the contract with a search firm as to how we approach the search and we include in the search what opportunities there are locally. I think it's up to us to do our due diligence in finding that search firm and then casting a wide net to ensure that both, whatever the terminology is, local or internal or and that's when I said born here, it doesn't matter to me. It matters to me that we search for the best qualified person, period.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate the clarity. Again, I'm sorry. It's hard for me to hear you, but I think you all make fantastic points. And the reason why I need to bring this up is because I was there. I was tasked with going over this contract and I couldn't bring it forward due to a tragedy. But I had significant concerns. There were so many red flags going on with this contract. And Ben knows this because I said, Ben, in good conscience, I cannot bring this to the board. And then it went to a different board member, and what was presented, was very, you really had to get in the weeds of the contract. So I think everyone has made such a great point. Mr. Murdoch, wonderful. Just, we got to be better negotiators. That's all I'm asking, is that everyone, keeps this on the radar, because there were a lot of things in there that I know this board would not have voted for in any capacity. But I was the one that was tasked with bringing it forward to the board, and I was vehemently against it at the time. And, then we ended up with it. So thanks for your comments, Anne. I really appreciate it.
And also, Madam Mayor, just bringing it back to what our agenda item is. When we're talking about contract, we're talking about the RFP. We haven't gotten to a CEO contract and the terms, which are a whole different place that we'll be going. But with the firm itself and looking at what these different companies, search firms can offer us, what their terms are, what their process is what we'll be able to look at and hopefully get quite a few that put in for it. And the first step is the RFP for the search firm. And a whole second piece of that is once we have candidates brought forward and we're looking at the actual contract of the new CEO. So two separate items. Today is just the RFP, which I support going for the national search firm, and move forward from there in the first step that we're taking today. So I have a motion and a second on the floor. Barring any other conversation or questions, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
And one opposed. Andy and Shannon, are you aye?
Yes.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, our final vote is
6 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 absent.
okay. 6 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 absent. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item G, board member announcements, reports, any updates? Mr. Murdoch.
Charles and I are both on the Nevada Commission on Tourism. And we got the Rural Roundup April 11th through the 13th in downtown Mesquite. So I wanted to let everybody know that love to have you.
Okay, April 11th through the 13th.
Yeah, if you'd like to.
In Mesquite. I've been there for baseball before.
Oh, yeah. It's got a beautiful little town, great golf.
A great golf,
That's
yeah.
for the Rural Roundup.
Rural Roundup, April 11th through the 13th. Okay, thank you, Mr. Murdoch. Any other comments, questions?
Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I just wanted to, a quick moment with the board to recognize Art Jimenez. He and I just spent a week traveling in Canada on the Travel Nevada sales mission. And it was a pleasure to travel with Art and Andrew Reno from the Reno Tahoe territory. We had a great kind of northern Nevada representation, and then some friends from southern Nevada as well. But also hats off to Travel Nevada for a great sales mission that they put together. Really strong interest for our region coming out of the Canadian market as they start opening up. So I just want to thank Art for his effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much. He's nodding and smiling, so I think he appreciates it too. Mr. Squaga.
And without creating a lot of work for staff on this, but would it be possible, talking about the facilities where we're at, would it be possible to take an afternoon? I don't know where we're at with open meeting law. If you were to can you give a board tour or no?
And the question was, can we do a board tour of any facilities if we really wanted to check out some of the issues we've got and what we're looking at? I'm going to let our attorney answer.
So we can do tours with less than a quorum. So we just need to schedule a couple and people can sign up. But yeah, we can accommodate that.
Yes. What would it be? Oh, we've only got 8 right now. Yeah, so we'd be looking at, that's something that we could Charles said he can look at setting up maybe 3 different groups. Of people.
Talk about these facilities, but a lot of us, including myself, don't really know them. It'd be helpful to kind of see some of the things that we're addressing. Things that we've done right and things that we need some more.
Okay, seeing no further comments, actually, I'm gonna go to my favorite part of the agenda. We are